everyone, this is Miss Gabby. Welcome to Storytime for our 7th and final week of the 2021 Summer Reading Program, Reading Colors Your World. I can't believe it's the last week and it's our last story time. The summer has flown by. Thank you so much again for participating. Well, our story for today is Yayoi Kusama Covered Everything in Dots and Wasn't Sorry by Fausto Gilberti. Yayoi Kusama! That's who we're studying this week. We're going to be learning about all about her and how she uses dots in her art. Let's get started. My name is Yayoi. I am an artist and I'd like to tell you my story. I was born in Matsumoto, a historic city in Japan with a beautiful castle. I have always loved drawing more than anything else in the world. When I was a little girl, I carried a sketchbook with me wherever I went. I drew everything I saw. I would sit in the meadows between the flowers and plants and see things around me that other people didn't. I rushed to draw them in my sketchbook before they disappeared. Wow, so she's been drawing ever since she was a little girl. Wow, that's impressive. I used to dream of becoming a famous artist. I longed to fly away to other countries where artists were doing exciting new things. So when I grew up, I decided to leave Japan. My mother didn't want me to go, but I was determined to make my dream come true. I got on a plane and flew to America. Wow, and that's the castle that she was talking about in Matsumoto. And there she is, flying to America. I arrived with a suitcase full of drawings and some money I had hidden in my shoes. But the money soon ran out. Uh-oh. With nothing left to buy food, I went to the market to pick up scraps. I would find fish heads and cabbage leaves that had been thrown away, which I used to make soup. At least it was something. I lived on my own in an apartment where I painted day and night. I painted hundreds and hundreds of dots onto large canvases. The dots often came off the pictures and ended up on my dress, table, and walls, but I wasn't sorry. Each dot was part of thousands of others. They made me feel like I was a single dot that was part of our infinite universe. I was making lots of paintings, but I was poor and alone. Aww. One day, an elegant lady came knocking on my door. Her name was George O'Keeffe. George O'Keeffe? And she was a famous American painter. I had written her a letter asking for her advice on how to become a successful artist. Wow, we learned about Yayoi O'Keeffe. She's the artist who paints flowers and deserts and skulls. Wow, pretty cool that they knew each other. She wanted to know how I was and offered to help me sell my artwork. She introduced me to her art dealer, who immediately bought one of my paintings. Wow, that's so cool! I continued to paint a lot of pictures, and soon I was ready to put on my first solo exhibition in New York City. It was a success. I had more and more exhibitions and more ideas for new works. I made soft cushioned shapes, which I used to fill rooms, boats, and shoes, and cover couches, armchairs, and hats. Wow, that's a really interesting installation piece, right? Covering all of those rooms? So interesting. I covered bags and dresses with dried pasta and filled room with glittering balls and lights. Wow, that is super cool. Imagine having a sweater made of pasta. And imagine being in a room covered in giant glittering balls of light. That would be such an interesting experience. I created mirrored rooms which reflected everything over and over again. That's right. We learned about that in our handouts, about her infinity rooms. So cool. Oh, imagine seeing yourself in a bunch of mirrors reflected. That would be pretty odd. Huh, look at that. I also organized performances that I called happenings, where I covered people's bodies with dots. It was a pretty daring thing to do at the time. My art was starting to get noticed and written about in the newspapers, so I decided to try to change the world for the better. Wow, so she wears dots and she covered other people in dots for her art. That's pretty interesting. I organized a happening on the streets of New York to protest against the war in Vietnam. I covered lots of men and women in dots, and they handed out leaflets with messages of freedom and peace. But it didn't last long because the police came and arrested me. Uh-oh. Yep, there she is, covered in her dots. And there's her messages. It says, love and peace, no war. Love, peace, no war. The little peace sign. Wow, that was brave of her and creative. And soon as I was released, I started working even harder than before. I held other happenings, I made films, I published a newspaper, and I created unusual party dresses. Some had big holes cut out of them, and others were made for two people to wear together. Wow, that would be really interesting to wear. Can you imagine wearing one big dress to fit in with another person? That's pretty funny. Oh my goodness! I even made a huge dress that could be worn by as many as 25 people at the same time. 25 people wearing one giant dress? Goodness! I loved creating all this new experimental art, but there came a time when I had to stop because I became unwell. I left New York and went back to Japan to get better. Back at home, I saw the beautiful mountains and the cherry trees in bloom, but a lot of things had changed since I left. Aww. The meadows and streams that used to inspire me to draw had been built over, and the cities were filled with smog. This made me sad. Aww. The day it snowed, the snow covered everything and transformed the landscape, turning it into something pure and beautiful, just how I remembered it from when I was a little girl. Oh, so the snow helped the landscape look a little bit better, a little bit clearer, a little bit cleaner. That's really nice. I found a studio near the hospital I was staying in and started working. Creating art made me feel better. I also began writing. I would paint during the day and write at night. Wow, so she's writing and she's creating art. Look at that. Although I miss New York, I decided to stay in Japan. It's where I still live today, and I still work nonstop, making paintings, writing books, and designing clothes and other objects. And the other thing I love to make is, wow, look at all those dots. Dots on the floor, dots on the installation, dots on her dress, dots on her bag. What else does she make? Pumpkins! I've always loved pumpkins with their beautiful shape and sweetness, and I want to show all the love I feel for them through my art. I also like to cover them in what? You guessed it, dots! You won't believe it, but I picked out a pumpkin when I was a child and it talked to me. You did it! My artwork has become really famous, and you can now see them in many different art galleries and museums around the world. My dream has come true. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well, that's the end of our story. She really does cover everything, all of her art in dots. And wow, those infinity rooms and the installations, the giant pumpkins, the dresses for 25 people. Such an interesting artist. I really liked learning about her. Well, make sure to look at the questions that we've included along with the video. Thank you so much again for participating in our summer reading program. Until next time, bye!